It is time for Kazva and Leenock live from the ladders. It's going to be HRE versus the Mongols on my favorite map. It's time for Altai. Here we go. Hopping in. So Leenock playing as the HRE. And Kazva as the Mongols. Kazva, I don't feel like I see him play Mongols too frequently, especially on Altai, because I think, and I wonder if he agrees with this, I would say Altai is a very gambly map to play the Mongols. Every time I see it, I have that same feeling that, like, you're kind of flipping a coin on whether it's a good game, if that makes sense, because you don't know whether you're going to get a tight spawn or what resource you're going to be giving up. So usually, like, either stone or gold ends up in the middle of no man's land. And this situation, Kazva does get the forward spawn. In this matchup, it can be a beneficial thing. The reason being is it puts you postured aggressively to try and block the HRE player. Now, when I say block, something I always like to emphasize when we talk about this type of matchup, when we talk about, like, the potential for early outpost rushing, when you do it against the HRE, you don't do it to kill them. It's not like when the English outpost rush, right? Their goal is to, like, build up rams and kill you and end the game. When a Mongol does it, it's simply to waylay your timings and allow them to access castle ahead of you. That's quite the big challenge up against HRE, right? But there are ways you can do it on maps like Altai. Altai can be a phenomenal map because if you manage to sneak an outpost here, for example, look what you block. You block the gold, you block the deer, you block the wood. That's a lot of resources gone from one outpost. Add a second one on the north side, and then a third, and you blocked everything. Like, one of the weaknesses the HRE used to have, especially when the spawns on Altai were tighter against the wall, and they were really inconsistent because sometimes they weren't, sometimes they were right up against the wall, more so even than this, is it would allow a player to fully encase you. And although the HRE can handle being condensed quite well, in fact, if you look at most HRE builds traditionally, they relied upon that condensed nature. You kept everything tight, emergency repairs offset damage, and you rush castle. Where it is a weakness is your resource allocation, like how you access resources. Because one of the biggest things that gets overlooked when you talk about HRE reaching these quick timings and being really powerful, actually booming up because they've got a 40% increased gathering speed, is the downside of having a faster gathering speed. Right? It's that you go through your resources faster. Your safe resources disappear quicker than any other Civ. So you have to make sure you hit your timings perfectly and push out. Because if your opponent is keeping up or even exceeding, you get blocked very quickly. And the Mongols is a Civ that can do that well. And it looks like Kazva is intending to do that. The outpost we talked about, it's not as forward as it could be. But he gets it in place. He blocks out any further gold gathering. And Leenock is going to be forced to be attentive and in complete presence in the feudal age, something that he maybe didn't intend to do originally. TC back at home is so happy. Oh man, the amount of sheep that you got, like Kazva, holy crap. 11 sheep, and there's like 3 dead, I think. 4 dead possibly. So you got the lion's share. And that means even more limited resources for Leenock, so he will have to fight out sooner than maybe he wants to. Wait, was that a villager? That death cry sounded like a villager, but there's one spearman left. I'm pretty sure it was a spearman. So, new outpost going down, and this is what we talk about, like the encapsulation. So, Kazva's next goal is to unlock feudal really fast, because he needs to get arrow slits upgrades, otherwise he's going to be shuffling back and forth here. He knows the tech up is coming out from the HRE player. It's very hard to block this. Like, it's almost guaranteed, especially with the new build for HRE, with them starting with Prelate. They can actually juice up so fast, but look at the split up here from Kazva. Yo, this is going to be infuriating for Leenock. He's trying to prep the archery range, but archery range alone won't be good enough. Also, keep in mind, if he goes archery range here because he wants to counter spears, because he went Archon instead of mine work, he actually doesn't have the ability to get on to siege engineering. He's going to have to spend another 150 wood to get into the blacksmith, and the blacksmith is located right next to the outpost. An outpost he doesn't even know about. And if I'm Kazva, I'm insta-garrisoning both of these and sniping a villager. It looks like Blacksmith will at least be able to complete. I like that from Leenock, actually. Most players wouldn't have pulled that many villagers. He didn't know for sure about this outpost. Wow. I mean, I'm impressed by the feeling that he needed it quicker from Leenock. A lot of players would have only had one villager on there for maximum efficiency. He had no reason, no logical reason to invest additional villagers outside of a gut feel. And it works out for him because he feels like the timing is like too tight. If he waits an extra 20 seconds, 30 seconds, it's going to be too late. And he's thinking about that from a wider game. It's not just about this outpost because he didn't know about that. It's that if he waits any longer, he thinks outposts are eventually going to be there 20 seconds down the line. He just doesn't know where. And his read was perfect because if he got blocked on that blacksmith, this is GG. You can't play out of this without sacrificing a lot of villages. Maybe call it GG as a jump. I don't like to call premature GGs, but you feel like you're pretty much GG'd out because if there's one thing an HRE player should never have to suffer, it's someone teching ahead of them. The HRE are meant to be the best for that, right? Like, they should always reach their timings first. It's what makes the HRE potent is quickly unlocking Castle or Imperial and then snowballing that. If your opponent manages to match or exceed those timings, usually you're in bad position in the game, right? Like, you're not comfortable. And the Mongol matchup especially can be infuriating for that because Castle Age is such a big deal for the Mongols. If they unlock it first, you feel pretty screwed. It's very hard to defend against that, even with like Spears and Langsneck seeming like they're a good idea. Well, here's the thing. If you go Spearman Langsneck, your opponent will just switch to archery ranges and build Magadai. So he's either going to rush you with Lancers or rush you with Magadai, but either way, at that stage in the game, like if a Mongol player has kept up your eco up until then, he's now reached a point where his eco is even better because of the step readout, right? So like he's moved past his fragility. He's set up his pastures. He's got his step readout. His eco booms at that point. And it's why you can't afford to be going neck and neck with a Mongol into castle. You need to be ahead. Ramp finally being built by Leenock, so we had to actually get the wiggle room. Very important that he gets access to this. He's on the berries right now. But he's missing out. Missing out big time, folks. Those berry patches. I mean, does anyone remember their numbers? How good are you guys at remembering numbers here for gathering? I'll give you a second, because we got another detail. It is going to be the multi-TC, which I like. I actually like this out of Leenock. He's going to achieve the super fast castle timing, so he's going to layer his eco. He's 40% more efficient eco with a second TC. And that's also going to guard the secondary wood line. So this is, like, there's mutual elements to this. It's not just about inflating his villager count now, and thus his eco. It's also gaining more ground. Ground that's easily defendable due to emergency repairs. So you had a bit of time to think about the gathering rates. These berries are suboptimal with Beyond because they're 0.66. The deer are 0.83. That's food per second gain. It's a big difference, actually. It's like a 25% increase. It's even bigger when you add the 40% detail in. The extra 40% gathering rate is bigger on bigger numbers, logically, but like the way it scales is bigger. So it's much better to get your hands on these deers, preferably let them finish mating. They seem to have a few things to sort out between them, but after that, you're just going to get a flurry of food off the back of this. Now, with just a few archers and rams, it's going to get rid of everything. And the cool thing, actually, about the way that Leenock done this is it's worth it now, because Kazvar, like, never really stopped his eco fully. He stopped him on the goal for a bit, which lagged behind his castle age timing, but now he's going to rapidly catch up. He never fully blocked the wood or the food. The problem with this is it means that, like, Leenock always had a way of investing to something. He was always building towards something. And the way he built towards this ram is incredibly efficient, because his opponent built 4 outposts. This ram costs 300 wood. These outposts cost 100 wood each. On top of that, the arrow slits upgrade has an additional cost on top of it. In total, to get your hands on siege engineering, you paid, I think it's 175 resources for siege engineering, 150 for blacksmith, and then the ram is 300. If you make it a direct resource-to-resource comparative, I think Leenock actually spent less than Kazva did to do all this. Now with that space, we'll quickly look the boom up. So with the eco lead now going his way, you notice Kazva down at 30 eco, but Leenock up at 37. And Leenock looking like he could achieve castle quicker than Kazva after all this. And it's all because Kazva, he renewed the assault. Oh, this is so like the Turk. I've seen this so many times. Kazva is the type of player that isn't deterred by a bump in the road. When he sees a mistake in the plan or he sees he gets countered, he usually tries to find a way to still make it work. It can be to his downside sometimes, but sometimes it's actually the rising phoenix in the game for him. Because where other players would abandon hope and give up, he sets the game into a set of variables that no one expects, because not many people do this, right? If you stopped a Mongol outpost rush like this, if it failed, you wouldn't expect at 10 minutes when you've gone for second TC for them to be back with 6 villages doubling down on it. And I have seen this work for Casva. I've also seen it backfire. It really can be a coin flip. It comes down to the way that the player reacts. And I think the way he loses these matchups is when he's against a player that's very good at reactionary gameplay. What do I mean by that? Some players, when they play RTSs, and some of you in the chat probably have this style as well, you carve out a plan, a game plan, and you try to stick to it. Now, a player will go out of their way to try and force you off that plan. Naturally, their plan might just do that by default. But you still find a way to try and get back to that plan. This is where Casva is very interesting, because that's what essentially he does. He had this plan, it failed. If at first you don't succeed, fail, fail, fail again. And sometimes you'll be successful. And that's what Casva's going for here. Leenock, the counter to this type of strategy are reactionary players. People who are very good at seeing what you're doing and then instantly taking a 90-degree turn. Leenock is very good at this. It's why he's always been seen, like he got the nickname the Leenocktopus, is because he's very good at reaching in and finding all these ways in. And I think part of what enabled that is that he would read the game state and see those weaknesses and exploit them. Whereas if he was just blindly going towards the Leenocktopus strategy, like how are you doing that without valid information? Are there enough gaps? Are you already counting the unit type? Has he gone for pocket ecos? These details all add up to inform you into it. And I think it's what actually complements Leenock so well with that strategy is that he is a very reactionary player. Very reactionary? Good words. Very reactive player. And he's very good at it. Outposts on the backside are going to be brought down. And Casva, he got dragged into this, and he might be dragged through the mud for it. Now, right now, the timing ended up being perfect for Casva, because look at the gold right now. Leenock couldn't get castle together. His food is great, his gold is not. So the timing on this actually blocked him out. But the problem is, with cheap troops, he might try to just push through this and get rid of the outpost. For now, with only horsemen being pushed out by Casva, he has 0 answers to the hardened spearmen. And that's maybe a concerning factor. Like, if you want to go for the all-in or feudal, you need to diversify. Horsemen alone are not going to cut it. But what does Casva do? He agrees, and he says, I'm teching up. This is once again a distraction. This is once again to block out Leenock's win condition. Leenock is still unable to reach Castle Age due to the outpost spam from Casva. That blockage is going to kick the ball down the road. And with that kick down the road, remember what we highlighted about the HRE, where their weakness can stand. As you go on to this point in the game, when you reach 15 to 18, up to 20 minutes, how quickly are your resources gone? Your initial resources. So you have to play out into no man's land, into danger territory. And Casva right now is trying to control that territory. But look at the response out of Leenock. He'll chase these boys down. Marching drills hasn't been taken, so he'll back off now. Happy that he's actually claimed this area because he's going to need the resources. Because when you look at the comparison, like Casva's had 12 people in wood, Leenock obviously up at 35. It's a little bit unfair to compare these two, but I'm going to do it anyway. Tree line comparison is pretty ridiculous. Because although there's 35 people there now for Leenock, there wasn't originally. There was even when we had a comparative number, let's say that they were at 15 each. At this point in the game, like the difference with the Holy Inspiration, the gathering rate difference is going to allow him to chip through the first half of this wood line substantially quicker than Casva. Step read out now online. This is where Casva needs to maybe switch up in the Lancers. Could go for a different direction though. Like, you are now up against a vast quantity of spears. It does feel like Lancers would be a bait. I prefer this. This is much better. Man-at-Arms. Man-at-Arms with the Blacksmith to prep the Siege Engineering improved will allow you to counter out the annoying little archers and possibility of crossbowmen as well. But I don't think we're going to see crossbowmen here. This should just be a melee mosh pit for Leenock. Get into the Lang's Neck, wipe his forces. For now, the only thing that might get wiped is your farmlands. Rush through with the maneuver arrow, goes even deeper looking on the stone line. Will force the villagers back, and greedy to form for HRE. Still no textiles, even when he has double TC. What the bloody hell's going on here? Go on. Leenock. At least he's back on the gold. This is where he's going to rush up. Wall's going up to try and stop it, but the first man-at-arms make their way through. They deny the palisades from going up. Looks like Casva's now going to back off. At least for the moment. Starting to stack up troops. Siege Engineering is not being taken first. Instead, he's getting the Iron Undermesh to make sure he can dive further. His double TC's up against and a decent amount of archers. But he drags the entire army back. Like, this is very crafty what Casva's done here. Like, the micro, the way he's done it, like, he drags all attention to the backside. And as a result, he gets more troops in place at the front of the base, and Leenock isn't ready to guard yet. It's pretty cool. I actually love watching players do this. It's actually so underrated, but so effective when we do see it. Like, the complete bait away of attention costs the player a lot of time. And time is a critical resource. When you're ahead technologically, economically, when you want to exploit it, like, it's always a clock factor. Like, if I invest in military, I need a little bit of extra time to build it up to critical mass. If I invest in early aggression, you know, I want to kick your time down the line, right? I don't want you to be able to exploit your eco right now. Like, everything is an investment. And it's very easy to forget that this game is made up of 6 different resources. Food, wood, gold, stone. Then we get to PopCap. And the final one is genuinely time. That's why we see people throwing away troops a lot of the time, because they want to buy more time by applying pressure. Because as that time like expands, they can reach their power spikes, right? So realistically, like, Leenock, he's throwing away all these troops to try and buy the tech up. He knew he was eventually going to lose them, and he knows he's going to lose in this man-at-arms fight, but he needs to do it to get the tech up. It's underway. It's a Burgrave Palace as well, because he knows he needs a defense force, and he needs it stat because he's already lagging behind with Kazza up to 10 man-at-arms, and 8 of them, 9 of them already in a fight. More to come soon. Villagers get spotted. Won't be stopped though. Leenock makes it up. And now he can begin the path to recovery, but it is going to be a tough fight every step of the way. Man-at-arms in on the villager line. Still no textiles. Leenock, he hates these German peasants. No, we'll have to pull back now. Garrisons as much gold as possible, drops it off to make sure he can afford the push, and there it is, Langsneck coming out. Langsneck that can eviscerate these man-at-arms because it's a one-dimensional formation from Kazva. They will come out so far. Spearman, of course, a good chunky front line. And I actually just like Spearman plus Langsneck for him. Also, the crossbowman, like, dude, this is actually really refreshing to see. How many times have we watched HRE players? They might build an archery range and build archers, but they never go into crossbowmen. Even when the thing they're up against makes sense for it. They're like, oh, if he built man-at-arms, I'll build man. If he build knights, I'll build man-at-arms. Look, HRE one-dimensional is one of the most infuriating things imaginable, where people just go, oh, well, my man-at-arms, they're my specialist unit. Like, they obsess over it. Because Langsneck can be so poop on the stick sometimes, they always look as man-at-arms as their backbone. But what Leenock has identified is crossbows are phenomenal here. Your opponent is only showing man-at-arms, and before that, he shoot the horseman. Why is this important? Well, what else can you build out of these stables? Lancers, which are also heavily armored. So the crossbowmen, right now, discount everything that Kazva can push. And now, Kazva's forced to make a reaction, to make a transition. What's his likely transition? Over here, baby. Siege engineering's already been researched. This is where we should get into Mangonel territory. This is where Leenock will have to find a way of getting additional gold income, because remember, by going up with the Burgrave Palace to stabilize his situation, he did sacrifice the economical gains of a regnance. For those trying to justify the man-at-arms, like, I can see the value of man-at-arms. I'm not saying they aren't a good unit for the HRE. But I actually am a big fan of Spears plus Langsneck. Especially in the current meta, where archers have been heavily discounted. Mangonel's buff damage against range units offset the pew-pew meta we were heading towards, where we were almost at a 100% ranged ratio in our forces, right? Like, archers late game was becoming the norm. Well, Mangonel's really tripped that up. Now that they've been buffed to do an extra 50% damage, people think twice about just pushing archers. So if people are less likely to push archers, spearmen get an increased value, no? We return towards a point where spearmen seem more viable late game. And they are incredible for the HRE, because the HRE don't only get this, the riveted chainmail that gives them additional melee armor, so they're a better frontline unit to hold back the slog of melee from the enemy. On top of that, when you reach Imperial Age and you upgrade your spearmen to elite, they start role-playing as Langsneck. Langsneck elite and Spearman elite look the same. They wear the same yellow pants, and they wear the same upper armor. And the only difference you can see is sword and spear. And that might sound like a big difference, but when you're doing this, when you're doing this, folks, like this right now, this is probably like this kind of thing to play. Let me show what the players are doing right now. That's the wrong thing. Now, this is a bit more choppy than his view, but it's not that far off. Tell me, how are you going to tell the difference between Mass Langsneck and Mass Spearman at quick glance? Can you? This isn't laggy form. This is slower than what they're doing. You guys have watched their perspectives. You've seen their streams. You've seen RTS players before. You know what their APM is. You know what they're cycling through. When you're looking at, when you manage your eco, your micro, and your units, you're building new structures, and you glance at an opponent's army, you might not realize what the ratio of Langsneck to Spearman is straight away. And it's something you have to keeping track of as the game goes on. Now, you can quickly click and drag, but that's also time taken away from moving your troops. So when you're looking to, like, just clash with an enemy, by the time you realize you're up against Mass Langsneck, you might have already lost the first line. Well, we've reached that stage for the Mongols. Outposts all going up. Mangonels behind them, Trebs as well. You're going to need a lot of Trebs, though, sir. Filthy Outpost Enthusiasts on one side. Emergency V Mashes on the other for the emergency repairs. He doesn't even care about the house. He kind of should because he's paying Kazva every time this happens. I think Leenock is just looking for a rush up. Whoop, Mago, no. Kills a villager. Not really what you're looking for there. You want a lot more value than that. Villagers! Well, that's a problem. And they get away just in time. Kazva. Crafty little goose. He starts stepping it perfectly. He's making sure he doesn't get in range for the anti-siege. And instead, he's going to be in range for the anti-siege of Kazva. Leenock. I mean, this is the danger of Altai, by the way. This is why, like, this is where the Mongols can be strong on Altai at this stage of the game. Because when you're playing a very condensed map, you have limited room to expand your base. And what it causes is the player tends to build their farmlands in more exposed areas. The problem with this is if you're on the defensive, which Leenock has been from start to finish, you completely get spanked by this. Against the Mongols, specifically. Because against any other Civ, it's just a 75 wood loss. I say just. That's actually a big amount on a map that has historically not had much wood, even after the buffs, including more wood lines. You're doing it against the Mongols. So not only are you paying 75 wood per farm, but then he's getting paid 50 resources per farm. And even more if this goes later on and he gets the improved rating. And he's fully... I imagine Kaz is fully aware of that detail. He knows this can get better and better. Leenock is making his way up as expected. The tech up is underway. House of Schwabia, the one place that he can build it. Now, he could have went for the Elsbach Palace. The influence would have been really handy with condensed base, but he needs more eco because he needs to start risking it. Like, if he just plays 2 TCs with an Elsbach Palace, he is more tanky, yes. But he can't afford to lose 10 villages on a new eco line. With the Palace of Swabia, with the Love Hotel online, and you can see by the queue up of villages, he can now afford it. He can throw them away. And also, just accessing Imperial should unleash him upon the map, rather. As now you'll get into the Culverins, and TC goes down. But big whoop. So Leenock doesn't really care too much. It's annoying, but he's still at 4 TCs effective because the Palace of Swabia is as effective as 3 TCs while also having a 66% discount to each villager you push from there. Keeps going up. Mangonels could end that right away. Kazva, there. What? What did he just attack? Did he attack ground? What? I actually think he attacked ground. Oh, Leenock needs to finish this, though. Leenock, no! Well, that's 800 stone gone. I'll build a house here instead. Oh, God. Leenock, that was not part of the plan. It's still buying time for the Culverins, at least. This Culverin's going to be crucial here. Look what Kazva's doing. Kazva slowly approaching top cap, at which stage he can actually go for Imperial. So what I think happened there, by the way, is Kazva attacked the ground to try and hit additional villagers. But he attacked the ground a tile away. So he, like, mildly feather tickled the villagers at best. Over and though. Passing walls means you can snipe these out. And oh, he's stopping it from building them. Wood is a problem right now. Leenock needs to get more of it. Culverin, where's this Sprinkle going? Where's this Culverin going? I don't think either of them know. The Sprinkle's not even attacking the Culverin right now. And there we go. We'll get another trade out. Front line there to hold. Repairs come through. Barely any repairs. He's got no wood. Leenock has no wood. He ran out on the backside. He's got to fight tooth and nail for each tree here. The push forward in the choke point. Kazva trying to hold in this area. Trebuchets trying to make their way through past the Swabi and now on fire. Hit the emergency repairs. Hit the emergency repairs. Why do people hate this button so much? There it is. Was that intentional out of Leenock? No way. No way. Like, maybe, but there's so many Trebs back here, it's incredibly risky. But he works out. He gets maximum value. He idles it as long as possible. Not really sure you needed to idle it as long as possible, but he keeps it alive. The Culverin, in the meantime, has gotten rid of a decent amount of the Trebuchets. Sprinkles as well. Front line. Starting to deplete on both sides here. Kazva still doubling up the military department. Is going to move in. Culverins slowly being torched down by 1-2 man-at-arms. These Culverins are going to start sniping out your units one by one. And you don't do great damage here, folks. Practically all your damage against the Culverin is gone. You're doing 2 per shot from the crossbows. Villagers need to repair, though. Oh, boy. Leenock with the baby 58 wood. You need to use it, though. Paz will be up once again on fire. This is going to be tight. This is going to be close. But he's going to get it again. Hit the repair. Hit the repair. Yes! Leenock lives. Lives just in time. Hold. And Kazva, get the hell out of my base, says Leenock. He actually holds. Leenock survives, but Kazva now with basically double eco. Kazva. He won't give up this ground. He'll keep on pushing. Multi-TC build now as he builds up to 3 TCs off the back of this. Leenock depleted, picked to the bone right now, struggling to even stay alive. Typical Kazva, 3 bloody TCs. Why? In what possible world? You have 3 relics, you have step readout, you have military control. Kazva's thought process, it's not enough. Dude, this Culverin. Culverin right here. The amount of sieges killed. The amount of military units, like, it's not just siege, it's been killing all of these frontline troops. Army gone. Kazva, full back here. Because this eco investment is going to stretch him a little. And that momentary reprieve, Leenock is going to need every second of it to rebuild. He is at 4 TCs effective, but now Kazva is at 3. He can reach critical mass quicker, but he's still lagging an entire age behind Leenock. Leenock needs to start finding a way out of here. The problem he's got is gold. Leenock is lacking in the gold department heavily because he just ran out. And now he needs to find additional gold surplus, but the problem is that Kazva has blocked off a lot of it. Outposts crawling around the north side, outposts on the east side. You're going to have to fight to get anywhere. In fact, you can't even fight for the east side. Like, where's the gold? Where the bloody hell is the gold? There's none. Not down here anyway. So relics are still... Like, wait. Where the hell is Kazva's monks? wait. I'm just going to need to clarify on this. So Kazva built a monk at some point. He grabbed 3 relics. He then did not grab sacred sites with that monk. And he didn't grab the other 2 relics with that monk. Am I understanding that all correctly? Why? Why is that such a stretch to do, but building 2 TCs isn't? I don't understand right now. I think Casper forgot. Either that or this is a friendly handicap. He's like, well, Leenock, it's a hard game for you. I'll leave 2 relics in case you maybe find a way to get them. Like, even if the Monk got killed, which, by the way, how would the Monk get killed? Maybe a wolf? That's the only way. You build another Monk to get these. Like, Casper, the one resource he's been able to afford, you can see on the income per minute, it's always been gold. So you've always been able to afford more Monks. Kind of weird there. I think he forgot about it. There you go. He goes in the Shaman now. Either that or this was a very late prayer tent. I could believe that. Maybe that's what it was. I didn't check for this recently, so it could have been this only just got placed. Like, I didn't check for it a long time ago, so we haven't really looked back at his base. Maybe this is a recent addition. I'm gonna say this is probably a recent addition. It just looked weird. It looked really weird. Especially considering he built a... So I think he misclicked a trader. He's like, well, I'll make it work for me. And he really is making it work for him. Front line for Leenock. Hardly holding. Corvin always running away. The boogeyman Springles are always chasing as well. Corvin fully peels back. Cannon upgrades now coming through in the outpost for Leenock. Should allow him to stabilize for a second. As soon as he thinks he's back in the game, the Trebs are back in the action. Leenock, 24 military, doubled up. Eco lead still clearly with Casva. Dive comes out towards the keep, but it's hard for Leenock to get towards a critical mass that could push out, that could do some serious damage here. It's always defend, 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 waiting for the one opportunity to riposte. But for anyone who's played some Soulborn and tried to do that, if anyone's played Dark Souls series and tried to do a counter-attack, you screw it up a lot of times before it works out. And Leenock, he can't afford that number of screw-ups learning. When he pushes out, it has to work indefinitely. Did I say Soulborn? Bloodborne. Words. Leenock, he finally got in the goal. Hi-ho, hi-ho. It's off to work we go. That is the life source Leenock needed. Liquefy that gold and inject it into my veins. It's the HRE back online. But can he maintain it? Ooh, he needs all the spears. The spears are back. No, don't break up. Don't break up. If the villagers join in, it can work. But if at any moment Casper turns around and fights, you're dead. Oh, no. Now, Leenock, he's going to get a decent amount of gold out of this. But it could cost him a lot of villagers. He can't even stop gathering right now. He needs it for the war machine. He needs every single sliver of gold he can get. Every coin matters here. And I don't think he's even fully noticed yet. He hasn't fully comprehended because he's busy diving past the outpost on the front line. Casper and his filthy outposts, as Mongols always do. He'll just try to go for the trade. Spearman to get rid of the crossbow. But in the meantime, just a few crossbow and man-at-arms are getting rid of your one lifeline as Leenock has been obliterated on his expansion. He finally realizes, folks, what? He lost 15 villagers. 15 villagers there. And he was already lagging behind. That was his catch-up point. Now, he did get 1.8k gold out of it. But where's that gold gone? Leenock has barely built any new units that have lasted. It's been mainly spearmen. So even with the spearman push, you have to question, where'd the gold go? Huh? Where's the money? Show me the money. It's the Culverins. The Culverins are his one hope, his one joy of recovering this game. But these Culverins are struggling to carry this game on their back. That's going to get worse now with Lancers coming in, because Lancers could just rush past and kill you. He needs to hold the choke points. The problem is, folks, these were choke points when we started. They aren't anymore. The wood line has almost been chopped through. The natural defenses are gone. It's an open battlefield, and that's one that cavalry can exploit. Leenock is trying to get the outposts up, but oh god, the amount of villages is costing him with each of these. He doesn't even garrison inside it. Culverin in trouble. Needs to repair that. Look at the amount of idle workers here right now for Leenock. Barely any wood. He's got 21 villagers trying to keep the Culverin alive. And while they keep the Culverin alive, you have to question who's keeping them alive. Because these archers, they aren't aiming at birds in the air. They're aiming at rats on the ground. Corvins still trying to defend. But now the crossbows start to crawl in. Springles will start to move up as well. And I mean, this is looking done. Leenock about to go the way of the dodo here. Nothing left for him. If he loses these defenses, if he loses the Culverins, he's done. He's out of wood, so he can't even repair them right now. He's trying to throw as many villagers in to get maybe one little small grab of wood here or there. But it's hard to get out of this now. He can barely put the army together. Barely maintain at 20. Leenock always being doubled up by Kasva, and Kasva are now about to achieve the Imperial Age. Yes, HRE got there first, but they got there in rough shape. They were on life support at the beginning of Imperial, while Kasva is completely unleashed. The beast in the field, the assassin of Altai, will claim another victim.